Hello everyone, welcome to the PMP exam question and answers solving session for January. Now, as you are aware, the syllabus and the format of the PMP exam is changing from July 2026. So if you are a PMP exam aspirant, you should make every effort to clear the exam before the format changes takes into effect. And that means to give your best to prepare and pass the exam within June 2026. And this video will help you to do that. So just like the previous months, we would be solving 5 medium to high difficulty level PMP exam style questions as per the current exam format, which is valid till June 2026 in this video. And for each of the 5 questions, we would be doing a detailed explanation on the correct and the incorrect answer choices. The intent of this exercise is firstly to test how well you are prepared for the PMP exam. So for example, you can use this scorecard that you see on screen to test and assess your performance across the 5 questions. And secondly, the goal of this exercise is to develop your understanding on the correct process and strategy to solve PMP exam questions efficiently on your actual exam day. So please give this video a like and let's get started with question number 1.
Right, so question number 1, guys, please read the question and try to solve it before we solve this together. You can pause the video here if you wish to. Right, so during a project status review, the project manager observes that deliverables assigned to a couple of team members are significantly behind schedule. What should the project manager do? Okay, so let's look at the options one by one. Option A. Inform the assigned team members that the delayed deliverables must be completed immediately to prevent additional project risks. Again, it's totally incorrect, because as a sensible project manager, as a project manager who is expected to demonstrate servant leadership, where is that demonstration coming out as part of this option? Because it's a bit dictatorial, isn't it? That in spite of being aware that there is a problem, you are not acknowledging that you are coming with a solution-oriented mindset, and you are still reiterating the fact that these deliverables needs to be completed immediately. Okay, so of course this is an incorrect answer choice. Let's look at option B. Record the delay, escalate to the project sponsor and request their guidance on resolution. This is also incorrect. Pointless escalation, because if you are escalating to the project sponsor without yourself as a project manager coming with some kind of a resolution strategy, what is the justification of your role, right? So that is why option B is also incorrect. Let's look at option C. Perform a backlog refinement session with the team to expedite deliverables. Possibly you can do a backlog refinement session, or really can you do it at this stage? Let's come to that in a second. Okay, let's look at option D first, which is to collaborate with the affected team members to assess the delayed deliverables and determine resolution strategies. Okay, now this is also a plausible answer choice. Now, of course, as you see that you are stuck between option C and option D. And if you go back to one of the videos that I have already published on my YouTube channel, I talk about this exact strategy on what should be your mindset when you are faced with this kind of a situation where you are stuck between 2 very close answer choices. Okay, now I would encourage you to go and watch that video as well after this one. However, coming to this, if you look at option C, basically what option C is suggesting that you jump directly into a conclusion and plan some actions. Okay, now that according to PMI is a strict no-no, because for PMI, as a sensible project manager who is trained on PMBOK, you always have to review, okay, before you act, or you always have to collect data and do that bit of an analysis in terms of understanding what the problem is before you take any action. And that is the reason option C is an incorrect answer choice, because option C is jumping directly into a resolution without reviewing the issue or the problem. However, option D is the correct answer choice, primarily because it is first of all demonstrating servant leadership, which is sort of collaborating with the affected team members, and also it is sort of hinting that you try to assess and understand what is the problem, which is part of the review process, right? So you data gather, you do brainstorming and try to understand comprehensively about what the problem is before jumping onto the resolution bit, okay? And that is why performing a backlog refinement session is incorrect, because it's jumping straight into the solution without even pausing to understand the problem first. Okay, so that is why option C is a very close answer choice, but it's an incorrect answer choice, and the correct answer is option D.
Now, if you are preparing for the PMP exam in 2026, I would suggest that you check out my PMP exam preparation courses on Udemy. All the courses are very highly rated amongst the students, and many PMP exam aspirants have passed the PMP exam with the help of these courses. And just to assure you, all the courses are fully updated and compliant as per the current version of the PMP exam, which will stay in effect till June 2026. You will find all the relevant links in the description section of this video. And now let's move on to question number 2.
Right, so question number 2, the drill will remain the same. Please read the question and try to solve it before we take this together. You can pause the video here if you wish to. Right, so let's get started. An enterprise software implementation project requires a specialized consultant to provide 750 hours of configuration services. The organization has chosen to outsource this work. Okay, so due to organizational policies, all prospective service providers must receive identical information regarding the requirements. Which action should the project manager take to ensure this? Okay, so this is a classical procurement management scenario which you need to understand as a project manager. So let's look at the options one by one. Option A, engage to receive RFIs from each service provider. Okay, so RFI is request for information. Okay, so let's hold this option for now. We'll come back to it in a second. Let's look at option B, organize EOI, okay, which is expression of interest with the service providers. Now please go back to your syllabus of the PMP exam and study these terms. Okay, RFIs, which means request for information, EOI, which means expression of interest, SLA, which I hope many of you would be aware, means service level agreements. Okay, so you need to be aware of these abbreviations, which are very commonly used in the PMBOK framework. So organize expression of interest, it is also a very interesting option, because when you do an expression of interest, you provide all the prospective service providers with information, and it is an identical information, and then you sort of ask for that who all would be interested to participate in this overall bidding process or this overall procurement process. Okay, so expression of interest, if you have done it in real life in project management, you should be aware of what I am referring to. If not, please go back, do a bit of Googling, do a bit of AI, and understand what expression of interest means. Okay, let's look at option C. Distribute the procurement management plan to each service provider. This is incorrect, because procurement management plan is something which is a company internal asset or a company internal artifact, and you should not distribute it openly with each service provider. Option D, rank each of the service providers with respect to their SLAs. This is also incorrect, because you have not even provided the details of the project or of the procurement task to the service providers yet. Then how can you expect the SLAs to come? Okay, so that is why option D is also incorrect. So that's a tie between option A and option B. Now if you look at option A very closely, it talks about RFIs or request for information, and option B talks about EOI or expression of interest. Now here you need to understand that when do you use RFIs? Okay, so RFIs in project management are used when you want some information to come from the service providers as part of your project. And it can happen the other way around as well, that the service providers can also ask you as the client to provide some documentation or some details regarding the scope which you have already communicated to the service provider. So the first step of a procurement process is not RFIs. Okay, be very, very clear about it. So the first step of a procurement process is to prepare the expression of interests, because once you prepare the expression of interests, this is what you are doing, right? So you are engaging all the prospective service providers providing them with identical information and then asking that who all amongst them would be willing to participate in the bidding. And that is why option B is the correct answer choice. Because once the expression of interests are sent out to the service providers, then they can ask for some additional information from the client side through some RFIs or request for information requests. Okay, so the RFI is not the starting point of a procurement process, because think about it, when you are going to a contractor or to a supplier, you can't just go with a request for information blindly, right? You have to have some basis on what you are asking the request of information for. Okay, and that is why it first starts with a EOI or expression of interest, and on the back of that EOI, either the supplier or the client can raise some additional RFIs or request for information, and then the suppliers can sort of submit their expression of interest and say that yes, I am interested in participating in this bid, and then the quotation is sort of sent out, and then it goes through an open tender process or a closed bid process, whatever the process is. Okay, and that is the overall steps of a procurement management process in this kind of a scenario. So that is why option A is a very close answer choice, but it is incorrect, and the correct answer to this question is option B.
Now, before we move on to question number 3, I would like to introduce you to my PMP exam study group on YouTube. It's a monthly subscription-based study group where I share daily tips on highly nuanced topics and strategies to help you pass the PMP exam. The fees are very nominal. You can try it for a month or so, and you will be able to see a dramatic improvement in the way you approach to solve PMP exam questions. Feedback from students for this study group has been excellent. You will find the link to join the study group in the description section of this video in case you are interested. So now let's move on to question number 3.
Right, so question number 3, please pause the video and try to answer this question before we solve this together. Right, so let's get started. Prior to the start of the upcoming iteration, the development team discovers an unforeseen impediment that will prevent completion of the current sprint. A user story scheduled for the next iteration cannot be delivered due to this impediment. So obviously there is a bit of interlinkage we are talking about. A separate team within the project requires timely delivery of user story 1 to proceed with the work. Again, there is an interlinkage not only with the deliverable but also within teams as well. Okay, so how should the project manager resolve this issue? So let's look at the options one by one. Option A, conduct individual sessions with both the teams and request them to determine a solution to meet the established deadlines and deliver the project on time. Incorrect, okay, because conducting individual sessions, it is a bit of a siloed way of working, and totally making them accountable to determine a solution without you not even being a facilitator, that is against the servant leadership principles. Okay, so option A is an incorrect answer choice. Let's look at option B. Engage with the product owner to reprioritize the iteration backlog, ensuring minimal effect on the other teams or commitments. Possibly. Okay, so let's hold this option for now. We'll come back to it in a second. Let's look at option C. Expand the team size for the development team and extend the iteration length. Okay, probably it's incorrect because extension of team size, it might not be possible, right? It has implications on cost. It has implications on availability. Okay, and extending the iteration means extending the timeline. So that might call for a change request. Okay, so you don't know whether you will be getting that approval from the client side or not, right? So that is why option C is also incorrect. Let's look at option D. Inform the team members that you expect their best effort given the challenging situation and ensure the iteration impediments are documented in the next retrospective. This is also incorrect because what you are essentially doing as a servant leader here, that you are just informing that, okay, deliver your best. Is that sort of good enough? Does the team doesn't know that they are supposed to deliver their best anyways? So what extra value you are adding with this option, right? And also postponing this for the next retrospective is not the sort of preferable way of sort of addressing this issue at this point, right? So option D is also incorrect. So the correct answer to this question is option B, which is to engage with the product owner to reprioritize the iteration backlog. And when you are reprioritizing, you have to ensure that there is minimal effect on the other teams or the commitments, because as we have seen in the entire scenario that this challenge does not only have implications and interdependencies with respect to tasks, but also has interdependencies with respect to teams as well. Okay, so you need to take into account those considerations. Okay, so the correct answer to this question is option B.
Right, let's now move on to question number 4.
Right, so question number 4, the drill will remain the same. Please read the question and try to solve it before we solve this together. You can pause the video here if you wish to. Right. So the most recent application release for a mobile banking platform did not incorporate the critical security fixes already completed by the quality assurance workstream. Okay, so the quality assurance workstream has delivered the security fixes, but that has not been integrated with the actual product. The Scrum Master communicated the security modifications. So the Scrum Master did their job, okay, and completion to the development team during a stand-up meeting, but no one recorded it. Okay, so it was like mentioned verbally, but it didn't go into any records, and that's why it was omitted. What should the project manager do to avoid this problem in the future? Okay, this is the key phrase which you need to keep in mind whilst answering this question. It is not asking that what should the project manager do now to salvage the situation, but it is asking that what should the project manager do to avoid this problem in future. So there is typically a learn from experience nuance associated as part of this question. So keep that in mind. So let's look at the options one by one. Option A, groom the product backlog with the team and the product owner prior to the upcoming iteration. Now this could have been the correct answer choice if the recommendation was that what should you do now, okay, or what should you sort of take into consideration to salvage this situation. Okay, this could have been the correct answer choice. However, since the question stem is asking that what should the product manager do to avoid this problem in future, grooming the backlog now with the team and the product owner prior to the upcoming iteration might not help, because the damage has already been done and the fix was already missed from being applied to the actual product. Okay, so option A is incorrect. Let's look at option B. Elevate the frequency of backlog grooming sessions and document the change in the retrospective. That is also incorrect, because essentially what you are trying to address here. Let's have a bit of a discussion, right? So see, what happened was there was this security fix which was done by one team, but it was failed to be incorporated in the actual product. Not because no one knew about it, but because it was being mentioned verbally, but it missed the documentation. Okay, now you have to understand the answer option that you would be choosing as part of this should have that learning aspect coming out of it. Okay, which option B fails to capture. Okay, so that is why option B is also incorrect. Let's look at option C. Conduct an ad hoc retrospective. Yes, so retrospective is something which captures the learning, and incorporate the agreed urgent change process into the team charter. And this is what you are documenting, right? So you are sort of taking into consideration that if there is a change that has happened, or if there is a modification that has happened, how should that be incorporated in the team charter as a process. Okay, so this is basically a systemic fix you are trying to address. Okay, not only you are trying to say that okay, I will increase the number of meetings because this got missed to be documented in one of the meetings. So what is the confidence that I would have as a client that okay, even if you increase the frequency from 2 to 5, it might get missed in all of the 5 meetings, right? So you have to take into consideration something which is a structural fix, and option C provides you that structural fix, which is incorporating the agreed change process into the team charter, which will be coming out from a ad hoc retrospective that you can do because you are trying to address the problem as a systemic fix. Now let's look at option D. Finally, confidentially remind the team and that the role demands rapid and proactive problem solving. This is like quite random. Okay, so I hope none of you have selected option D because it totally goes in a different tangent. So With that, the correct answer to this question is option C, which is to conduct an ad hoc retrospective, which will address the problem in the future, and of course will address the problem now, and of course will incorporate the urgent change process into the team charter, so that whenever there is a modification or there is a change, it has a process of being captured as part of the meetings or as part of the requests coming to the team in the stand-up meetings. Okay, so the correct answer is option C.
Next, moving on to question number 5. Remember, the target is to get all the 5 out of the 5 questions correct, okay? However, the minimum expectation is that you will get at least 4 out of the 5 questions correct to consider yourself fairly well prepared for the PMP exam. You can assess your level of preparation according to the scorecard. So here comes question number 5.
Right, so question number 5. This is a short and sweet one. Please pause the video and try to answer this question first before we solve this together. Right, so let's get started. A project manager leading a dispersed team discovers during the 4th iteration of software development that the information radiator displaying the sprint progress is malfunctioning and it is not reflecting the current updates. Okay, so you are leading a dispersed team, which is, let's say, cross geographic, cross time zones, etc., etc. And the information radiator, which is typically some digital Kanban boards or sort of a project dashboard, which is digital, which captures the progress of the sprint real time across geographies. Okay, it's malfunctioning. Okay, very, very critical defect that you need to solve. And it is not reflecting the current updates. Okay, which action should the project manager take? Okay, so let's look at the answer choices one by one. Option A. Maintain team productivity and distribute daily email status reports to the team. Okay, that is incorrect. Okay, because maintaining team productivity by emails in a cross geographic or a dispersed team is not something which is recommended, because emails, is it the best way of communication for real-time information? Possibly not, right? Because people take time to read emails. You have an information radiator, there is something which has been proven to work, but you are not taking any steps to fix it, rather than you are directly going into a fallback option, which is emails, okay, which is not really recommended for a dispersed team. So that is why option A is incorrect. Let's look at option B. Prioritize the information radiator repair based on business value for future iterations. Okay, you can prioritize it for future iterations, but what about now? Okay, you need to do something now, right? You are like really screwed that your information radiator, which is your key project dashboard, is not working. So you have to fix it. Okay, that is the first thing which you need to do, because think about it. If your team is dispersed and that information radiator is the only window through which you have the access for understanding the progress of the overall project and your individual team members, and if that dashboard is screwed, then you are screwed as a project manager. Okay, let's face it. So your first line of action should be to do everything in your power to fix it. Okay, and that is exactly what option C suggests, that arrange for the information radiator to be fixed, plain and simple, right? So no questions asked. Let's look at option D, because that is also an interesting one, which sort of suggests that you record the situation as a new project issue and recommend a solution. Now, some of you might say that, look, Ray, D also looks a plausible option, right? Because you record the situation as a new project issue, recommend resolution, etc., etc. But again, the question is that your information radiator is not working. Even if you record a new project issue, which is online, what is the guarantee that it will be recorded properly? Okay, unless you go into a pen and paper mode, which again does not work for a geographically dispersed team, right? So recording the situation as a new project issue, yes, you can do that and you can recommend a solution. But again, is it something which sort of an ideal thing to do? Probably not. And that is because the ideal thing to do first is arrange whatever could be done to fix the information radiator. Okay, because going back to my argument that even if you try to record this as a new project issue and recommend a solution, you need to again bring all of your team members together for that recommended resolution, right? However, since your information radiator is not working at the moment, as I mentioned, that even if you record this as a new project issue, that might not get reflected properly across different teams who are part of the project, right? So option D might be a plausible option if option C was not there as part of the answer choices. And again, if you go back to that video which I referred to previously in terms of how you do an analysis when you are presented with two very close answer choices, this is what you need to sort of take into consideration, that you have to select the best answer choice which is applicable at that point of the scenario which has been presented to you as part of the question. And here, since you are working with a dispersed team, no questions asked that if your information radiator has failed, you need to fix that radiator as soon as possible. Okay, now of course you can do that documentation parallelly in terms of recording the situation and recommending a solution, etc., etc. That could be done. However, that is not at the expense, okay, mark my words, that is not at the expense of you taking a proactive action to fix the information radiator as soon as possible. So D is a very close answer choice, but it is incorrect primarily because first, it is asking you to document as your first step of issue resolution, which is typically not the right thing to do. Because if you are faced with a challenge, your first step should not be documentation. Okay, it should be at least data gathering or at least taking a step forward towards the resolution. And again, even if you are recommending a solution in a dispersed team where actually your information radiator is not working, it's a bit pointless because many of your team members might not be able to see that update or even collaborate to sort of come with a solution which might work for all the teams. Okay, and that might even become more tricky if your information radiator is not functioning. Okay, so hands down, you have to first fix the information radiator. So the correct answer to this question is option C.
I hope you liked the session, guys. Please press the like button and subscribe to this channel if you really feel that this session has helped you in your PMP exam preparation journey. And I'll see you again in the next video.